Hi, it's Constant Angler here. I'd like to talk to you today about the Texas rig. The Texas rig, you can see it here in front of you, consists of a weight, a comb weight in this case, that's lead, a bead, an EWG hook, I'll show you this, EWG wide gap hook, and your lure. Now you can also peg the Texas rig if you want by using a bobber stopper. Right, so let's run through rigging this lure. So we get our bait, we get our extra wide gap hook, we push the hook down through the top of the bait, right to the center at the head, about the same distance as this hook keeper, take it out through the bottom of the bait at a right angle, slide our bait up and over, twisting it and around and over the eye and the hook keeper part of the hook. We then line our fingers up with where the hook is going to sit in the bait, turn it over, get the hook point and put it down, straight down through the middle of the bait. And when we flip that over, everything should look nice and pretty like that. You can see in this bait here that the hook is not quite right, so just push it back out and pull it back through right in the middle of that bait there. Happy with that now. And you can see on this bait as well, it's got a little recess for you to put your hook in. Now you can leave it like that, that's quite weedless, but I still prefer to texpose the bait. So we have a Texas rig bait there, but what we're going to do now is what they call texposing. Now texposing a bait involves putting a bit of plastic over this hook point just to make it even more weedless. If I push that down, you can see how that hook point's coming out, so you know, rocks and all sorts will push on that and it could snag. Now texposing, this is how we do it. We pull the bait towards the eye of the hook and then we let it go and drop it over the point of the hook, just texposing the hook in that plastic. So now that bait is very weedless, totally weedless. People will worry about how's a fish going to hook itself. Well, if you watch, they'll bite, down it'll go, out the hook point will come, be exposed, you'll feel that and you'll strike. Hey ho. Now pegging, do we peg or don't we peg? Well, in order to peg, we're using our bobber stopper and we push that down tight to the bait. Now what that's doing is keeping everything together. When it sinks through the water down to where you want it to be, it will stay together. It won't hang up in different places, your bait being up here somewhere and your weight being down there and dangling around. So there's your advantage. So where are you going to use that? Well, you're going to use it if it's really heavy cover, you'll flip into gaps in weed or lily pads. You've not got an option, that's what you're going to have to do there. Now, I prefer to unpeg all the time that I can, because I feel, I mean, I'm talking from experience of fishing for wrasse and perch in the UK here, these fish don't like resistance. So if I pull that there, the only resistance they're going to get is from the tide, the wind, and maybe your rod tip if you're fishing your line too tight. They're not going to feel that weight. That's what I'm trying to get to. So pegging has its advantages, it has its disadvantages. I also feel with pegging that if I pull these back together again, the fish can use this weight to flip the hook out. It's something I've seen happen myself. So there's another thing you might consider. Now, what gear do we use with these? Well, again, I'm talking from experience of fishing in the UK. I know you might use different gear in the US or other parts of the world. You can use a bait casting setup, you can use a spinning setup. It's got more to do with the lines you're going to be using and the leaders you're going to be using. What you don't want with either setup is a soft rod. I prefer a fast action rod with a sensitive tip. Now, when I say a sensitive tip, it can be soft, but I don't want it to be floppy, because if the tip or the rod is floppy, it will load up and then it will spring your baits out and you'll lose your presentation. If you have a fast action rod with a sensitive tip, you can feel these things happening and you can, to a degree, prevent that, but you also have more feel. You can feel the weight more, you can feel what that bait's doing along the bottom, and that's going to help you present your bait in lots of different ways. Now, baits, as you can see in front of me, I have a variety of baits. We have traditional stick baits rigged with an EWG hook, as I showed you earlier. We also have a Senko, this time rigged with a round bend offset weedless hook. Talk about that later. We have a beaver bait here from Berkeley Havoc, I think. I can't remember the name at this point. A crawl bait, another Berkeley, I think that's a Pit Boss Junior. We have a curly tail grub here, and a fluke. And of course you could have a shad as well if you like there. You can rig tubes the same if you like. There's different ways of rigging tubes, but that's another option. So types of hook. We have our traditional EWG extra wide gape weedless worm hook, and we also have our round bend offset worm hook. If I put the two alongside each other, you can see the EWG has a wider gape on it, so it's more suitable for wider baits. You can use it on any bait, you don't have to have it on wide baits, but it certainly helps with wider beaver baits like that one there. And then we have our offset worm hooks. I like these for things like Senkos. You rig them exactly the same way. Now I sometimes feel these hooks are narrower, and if bites are tricky or it's smaller fish with smaller mouths, this narrowness I feel enables the bait to get into the fish's mouth a bit easier. So that's when I would choose to use these hooks. Types of weight. Tungsten is best. It gives you far more feel than lead, but is very expensive. I don't use tungsten for that reason. It's too expensive. I feel I get enough sensitivity anyway. I use two different types of weight. It very much depends on what I've got my hands on at the time. But if you can see with a cone weight, that will tap the bottom like that, and I'll feel that through my fluorocarbon and my braid to my rod, and I get a good sense of feeling with that. An egg sinker, I don't feel snags as much as a conical sinker. Just my experience, I could be wrong, but it's not as pointy, so I feel you lose a little bit of sensitivity. But do you know what? I don't think it makes that much difference in my fishing situation. It may in yours. It's entirely up to you. Another thing you might want to consider is your type of bead. I mean, you could be looking at colour. I've got a red one on here now. I don't really worry too much about that, but you can get glass beads, metal beads, acrylic beads, probably something else I haven't thought of yet, tungsten beads I expect. What your bead's main purpose is to protect your knot. In this instance it's not so critical because I've covered the knot, but it protects your knot from the weight. Its secondary function, although a very important function, is to provide sound. You can, as I drop that, you can hear the two clinking together. Glass makes a different sound, plastic makes a different sound than metal. Some people swear by glass. I don't like glass. I just feel, I don't know if it's me being stupid, but it could cut my line and shatter. So I have had that happen. I've had them shatter on me. So if they can shatter, they can nick my line. I can lose a fish of a lifetime. I've got a plastic bead on here at the minute. I do have some metal ones, and they do make a different sound. When I'm fishing for wrasse in the UK, that sound is very important actually. It attracts, they're inquisitive fish, and it attracts the fish, and I presume it does the same with bass and perch and other species you might fish for with this rig. And they'll come along and then they'll see the lure and they'll think, I'm having that, and away you go. So the only thing left to really talk about is what I use this mainly for in the UK. I think I've probably said already, perch and wrasse fishing. If I'm wrasse fishing, I'm using at least a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader, and that's attached to 20-pound braid and via an FG knot. It's the best knot out there. It's very difficult to tie, but once you've learnt it, you've learnt it. If I was perch fishing, I would probably be going down to something like a 5-pound fluorocarbon leader with 8-pound braid. It's entirely your choice. When I'm wrasse fishing in really rough ground, I'll probably go up to about 30-pound braid, 40-pound braid, 25, 30-pound leather. So all that remains for me to say is I hope that was of some help for you, and please like and subscribe my channel, and thanks for watching.